Okay, we're recording.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Monday night call.
I always do that too.
One night I'll get it right.
California time.
Yeah. California days. We're daydreaming out here. It was 80 degrees today. My tower garden is going crazy. I'm like, I wanted so badly to pack this thing up because I just wanted to clean one down and, transfer some plants. And we have 4 towers. So I wanted to go from 2 down to 1. I'm already down to 2 and just clean it up a little bit so I can get through the holidays and not, think about much. And it just keeps going. It's like I can't get it to quit. So, and I hate to kill a living plant. It breaks my heart. So anyway. All right. So tonight we're having some fun. Danielle's going to lead our book discussion tonight. And we may have a little interruption in a little bit. My daughter wanted to wish everybody happy Hanukkah. So she drew a menorah and everything. She was so sweet. So she may barge through the door, and I'll take a break and do that if she does. So, just to honor her little heart. But yeah,
that's awesome.
And then next week we may have a surprise guest. I'm working hard to get that done. So to help us round out this book club experience. So if you haven't caught up to today, don't worry about it. But let's try to get all of the reading done by next week so that we can really kind of tie it up in a bow and then take a break for the holidays and come back and move forward. Okay. Yeah. So with that, Danielle, I will mute myself.
No. You never have to mute yourself. No worries. And obviously this call and next week's call too, this was meant to be a little interactive. So this is not meant for me to sit here and,
right.
I'm not going to preach on about anything or anything like that. That's really is meant to be interactive. And I know some of you have been able to read the book. Some of you might not yet. We're probably all at different stages. But the intent for this evening was to get through the first 2 agreements. And so I'm going to read through. I'll just read the little synopsis again, just to bring everybody up to speed on the first agreement, which is be impeccable with your word, speak with integrity, say only what you mean, avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. And maybe we'll just start right there, and maybe we'll just ping pong back and forth for a little bit before we go into the second agreement, just to really, dive into it a little bit. And for those that have read this before, I'd love to open it up and get maybe your a big takeaway or your thoughts, or even, I know when I read this type of book, there's a lot of personal reflection that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
I start to think about, of course, myself, maybe how I have responded in certain situations or in certain areas in my life. How, of course, right, this heading being impeccable with your words, I start to think about, how am I speaking? What am I saying to people? And more importantly, too, what am I saying to myself, right? So before I continue on speaking, does anyone, that was able to read, or even just based on what I had this little synopsis, knowing what be impeccable with your words means and what it's all about, want to take 2 minutes and share anything? Don't all jump up at once.
I don't know. I could say a lot, I guess. Not a lot, but I feel like I almost have to reread it again, just because to be honest with you all, I literally was reading it. I started reading it last week, and then I felt like I wasn't really concentrating. So the weekend was busy, and I really took the time today, and the house was quiet, and I was like, I didn't have any noise, and I read both the chapters, and I still feel that I need to read it again because it was so powerful what I was reading.
And Christine, just so you know, that's why I've read this book, and this is my 5th time I counted. And every single time there's more meat. It's a small book. It's funny how it can be so jam-packed in there, but it really, you're right. Absolutely right. And other people may feel the same way. So don't feel bad. That's why we chose a small book. Like, you can go back and, glance at this. There's so many, and there's teachable tools that come along with it. There's other things you can dive into. Mhm.
Yeah, because I just wanted to focus on reading it today, but I do want to go back and review it and highlight stuff too, or just make more notes, because I didn't want to stop and break up what I was, reading and kind of absorbing and then writing something down or highlighting. Like, I want to do that the second time. But yeah, like, do we really even know what impeccable is? Like, you think impeccable's a certain word and it's totally something else. And I mean, even like the second chapter, just about taking things personally, that I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, but like even stuff was written in there was like shocking.
Yeah, hold on.
But we'll talk about
hold on that one. Let's get through the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it just, I can't see. I don't have my glasses on, but jeez, I can't read anything without my glasses. Yeah, I just found it, I can't even explain like how I feel. I'm sorry that I can't. I was kind of blown away today, because it really is a small book. And I remember saying to Danielle, I never make it through a book. And I know this one, I want to get through this book, and I want to even read it more than once. And now I understand what you guys were saying about how you go back over it, you reread stuff and stuff like that.
And once you do get through it completely too, you want to hang on to this book, and you want to read it again at different stages of your life as well, because you're going to take away different things. And like, same with Melissa, I started reading this book in college, and I had a conversation actually just this evening with somebody about it, a family member who, I respect his opinion very much. And we were having a different conversation. I go, you'd appreciate this though. My team is reading this book all together for this month. And he writes in all capitals, I love the 4 agreements. And it is. It's, hey, Rachel.
Hey.
It really is. It is the kind of thing that, you do want to read it when you've got some quiet time and you can really dive into it and take it one, like, that's why we broke this up too. Like, take it one chapter at a time. But even what obviously I'm a mom and a parent, and what I've been doing as I'm reading it too is applying it with my kids and having conversations with them about it, and being impeccable with their words, right? And we went right to the dictionary and looked up what impeccable means so I can explain it to them. And how our words are so important. And I think, if we want to relate it in terms of our business, one thing I was just thinking about this evening is, again, it's not only, like we said, about what we're saying to other people, but it is also what we're saying and how we're speaking to ourselves. And how often do we have awful self-talk? I mean, just to put it not really that eloquently, but, how often are we, going for something and we don't quite hit a goal, or we didn't quite, things didn't work out exactly the way we wanted it to, or we envisioned it to, or thought it should have gone. And, or somebody said no to us. And what's the first thing we do? We point the fingers at ourselves and we say negative things about ourselves. And all that really is doing is just planting that seed further in us. And you want to avoid that, right? And that's just, like, for me in that chapter too, like, that's a really big takeaway. Like, the things that we tell ourselves are hugely important, right? And what we're telling ourselves is then, obviously going to lead us in a very either great direction or maybe not as a great direction. So it's really being mindful of the words that we use, that self-talk.
Yeah, I just want to jump in here real quick. This is Marie. When I was staying with Buffy back in October when I came out to California, and there was more than one time when I made a comment about, oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot, or something. I mean, it was silly because it was like something I forgot to do or something I overlooked, or I don't even remember what it was. But it was just, I said out loud in front of her, oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot. She's like, don't say that. You're not an idiot. So you're absolutely right, Danielle. Self-talk is very important. Yeah. And we have to watch out what we say to ourselves. We have to pump ourselves up. We have to think positive. We have to portray that. We have to, you're right. It's extremely important. Very important.
I want to read this excerpt on this point because I underlined this on page 28, and it talks about, it's going back a little bit, but it says, this is so to your point, Marie, the human mind is like a fertile ground where seeds are continually being planted. The seeds are opinions, ideas, and concepts. You plant a seed, a thought, and it grows. The word is like a seed, and the human mind is so fertile. The problem is that too often it is fertile for the seeds of fear. Every human mind is fertile, but only for those kinds of seeds it's prepared for. So what is important is to see which kind of seeds our minds are fertile for and to prepare it to receive the seeds of love. And I think that if we could tie that whole thing up in a bow, it is so much the words we speak to ourselves, but it's also the willingness to hear the good stuff. Because I see a lot of times with people that they are receiving, there's kind words being spoken to them, and they have almost like a deflector that comes up and pushes them away. And I have to say, this is something I have personally had to work on so much, where people would come to me and say, "You're so good at blah, 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 blah." And I'd say, "Oh, no, 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 no." Right? My instinct was to say no first, not, "Wow, really? Thank you. I didn't realize you saw that about me," or whatever. Like, my instinct is always, or "You look so good in whatever." No, it's just an old thing or whatever. "Oh, that's such a pretty." No. It's, my instinct was naturally, my initial reaction was always no. I was pushing away all those positive affirmations that were coming towards me. And then I would wonder why I had self-esteem issues. But the reality is that if we create a fertile ground to receive those words, right, from our life, from strangers, from people that we interact with daily, and allow those positive things to nest, rather than just, sometimes we're conditioned in our thinking. And I'll be very vulnerable here and say my husband struggles with this all the time. He's so conditioned to negative thinking that he oftentimes he won't even take the compliment that I give him. He'll just won't even acknowledge it. And I have to stop him and say, "Hey, listen, honey, I just said this. Can you acknowledge that I said that?" And he was like, "Thank you." And you see his entire physicality change when I stop him and bring him into the moment. So, are we doing this is just the question, right? Are we doing this to ourselves? And kind of setting us up for that failure, in a sense, failure of thinking. So I agree with you, Danielle. That was the biggest takeaway for me in this chapter, was just all about, like, how authentic are we being with ourselves? How true to our word? Are we seeing, ourselves in reality, or are we jaded,
Right. And, oftentimes we are jaded. And it's a lot of people are, and that's okay. Cause I think taking this step, and what's so nice about being a part of this team and this community, is that we're in an environment where it's a safe space to recognize these things and realize that we want to elevate ourselves and elevate each other and make changes and do it together with support and with love, which makes it a lot easier. But I think if you don't have anything else to share about Be Impeccable with your words, I want to also mind the time. You do, Jen? Yeah, please.
I would share.
Yeah.
Some of you guys know this, but earlier, I used to hang out with a group of people, local people, who were a little gossipy and not the most positive people, and would often, maybe as a way to kind of bump themselves up, would knock other people down. And I was part of that group, just because it kind of just happens. And kind of around the same time that I signed up for Juice Plus, I stopped hanging out with that group of people. I don't know if it was a chicken or an egg situation, which came first, but and I hope they'll never see this recording. But I just realized this. No, they won't. Trust me.
Well, if they do, they've made the same choice as you, so that's okay.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I actually don't hang out with any of those people anymore. I was the way that they spoke about other people as toxic, and they didn't even see that. I saw it and consciously removed myself from that situation, and now surrounded by people who do not talk behind other people's backs. And it's refreshing, because it's just kind of something that, I don't know, as women, do we just gossip? It's just kind of what we do. It just kind of flows out of our mouths. We don't even know we're doing it. And it's nice to not have that in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you for sharing that, because I know it. As women, I think maybe we all probably could have pinpointed a part of our lives where we maybe were around those women and those group of girls, and myself personally too. And I think through the years I've separated myself out, and it feels a lot better when you surround yourself with other people that, again, like to lift each other up and support one another, and speak kind words to one another, and speak and pour love into each other. It is much more elevating and uplifting.
Well, it's just positivity versus negativity.
Absolutely.
That's really what it comes down to.
My grandpa always used to say, this is like a famous quote, you've heard me say it a million times, but surround yourself with good people and good things will happen.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, it kind of leads nicely into the next chapter, which was don't take anything personally. Right. Mm-hmm. And this is I love this one. And this is a super, super short chapter too. But I'm just going to read this little excerpt as well, and then we can share. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dreams. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. Right? So again, thinking about like that group of women, nothing that they're doing is because of you. Nothing that they're saying is because of you. Nothing that they're saying is about the women that they're gossiping about, right? It really is a projection of them and how they perhaps see themselves or don't see themselves or want to see themselves, right?
Well, it's the only way they have to. It's a superficial way of connecting with other people. Mm-hmm. It's like the equivalent of men bonding over sports.
Only sports is a little less toxic than that,
Yeah. Yeah. Does anyone have any other any shares on?
Can I just read something that hit me like a ton of bricks when I read this chapter?
Yes,
absolutely.
There's one little paragraph. If someone is not treating you with love and respect, it is a gift if they walk away from you.
Mm-hmm.
If that person doesn't walk away, you will surely endure many years of suffering with him or her. Walking away may hurt for a while, but your heart will eventually heal. Then you can choose what you really want. You will find that you don't need to trust others as much as you need to trust yourself to make the right choices.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like what Jen was saying too, like it may hurt to walk away from friends, but you see sometimes, especially like when we have our own businesses and things, like things do change and your circle of friends definitely change. And sometimes it's a blessing that those people are not in your life anymore, as sad as it is, but they are toxic and negative, and we don't need that. So I just love that paragraph. The whole chapter was awesome.
Well, and that ties into what Wendy Campbell says, right? Which is, be grateful for the ones that stay and be grateful for the ones that go. And it's hard at first to feel that, because especially if you've got 5 customers, right? You're like, and one of them cancels on you, you're like, oh my gosh, that's like so crazy. But the reality is that you really want to enhance your experience by surrounding yourself with 40 people who are so excited about Juice Plus. Imagine this, like put this little seed in your brain, right? Like imagine the day when you've got an awesome, solid rockstar business. You've got 40, solid customers. They're so happy that they tell everybody about it. Mm-hmm. That's where you want to build your business to, right? And so who cares if you have to go through a bunch to find the 40? You find those 40, they're going to feed you for life. And on top of that, they make your experience better. You don't have returns to handle. You don't have people calling you saying, I showed up too soon, I've got way too much. Bye. And like every time you checked on them, they said they were fine. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to deal with that kind of stuff because you've got the excited, happy ones. So, and same thing with your team. What if you've got like a solid rock star, 50, 100, 250, I don't know, 1,000 team members that are just gung-ho excited all the time. Like those are the people you want to be around, right? Yeah. That makes life exciting. That makes the job so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Can I pick your brains with a question?
Sure.
So I didn't get to read this chapter yet, but you all are like hitting a nerve right now, because what do you do in a situation when you're working with someone who's very toxic? You don't have a choice to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my situation right now. And I'm, I go through a lot. Thankfully, I have another coworker who understands and is on board with me and helps me get through it. But I mean, it's 8 hours a day of torture, and a boss that doesn't really want to do anything about it, or can't do anything about it, and I'm stuck in a room with this person. It's tight quarters.
Danielle, do you have that process?
Without going into too much detail or knowing the full situation, and I'm always happy to talk to you one-on-one, but I can share from some similar experience of being in a work environment with someone that I did not care for at all. We'll just leave it at that. I had a turning point moment when I realized that I wasn't going to change. I wasn't leaving. This person wasn't leaving. We had to work together. And this person was a miserable person. But what I realized most was that this person needed a lot of love. And so I shifted my thinking every time before I walked into work to just send thoughts of love their way. I didn't change the way I spoke with them. I didn't change anything. It changed my mindset before going in that I was going to wish them well. When I would, do my thoughts at night, I would wish this person well. I would wish them happiness. I would wish them success. I would wish them all sorts of positive things because this person really needed it. And it really helped me to get through and just see this person as a person and not as a SOB, some dirty other words that I could say about them. And, that I was hearing, it allowed me to see him as a person that truly needed love poured into him. And so for my well-being, I'm unstable here. For my well-being, that really helped me significantly. And again, I think this goes back to, right, I think when you get the book, or I think maybe it just arrived or it's coming soon, and you have the time.
Yeah, I have it now.
I think it might help you put things into perspective a little bit, and maybe give you some tools to go into work and maybe have a little shift in your mindset. To think about.
I've actually made those attempts before, and they help briefly, but I could go on forever, so there's no point in going into the details, but
here's the thing, we know you can't change her, right? You can't change her.
It's just constant abuse. I've described it like it's like somebody's punching me in the face, and I'm supposed to sit there and say, thank you, may I have another? Thank you, may I have and no matter how nice or out of my way I go to do kind things for this person because I know they need that. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think you're touching on a couple of things that tie back into the chapter. So don't take anything personally, first of all. Right? And the chapter really does talk about how to do that, like how not to take it personally. So sometimes I find jotting it down on paper and seeing the reality of the situation. Because a lot of times when we get into an emotionally charged situation, it heightens our senses, it heightens our perception of what we're experiencing, and that can make it that much worse when I do this all the time. It's almost like fantastic. It stretches it, and then it's bigger than it really is, and it's not meant that way. But when you really practice, just think of this as like a muscle, Greta, that you have to exercise. That's why coming back around, don't take anything personally. It goes on both spectrums too. I don't want to just focus on the negative here, because don't take anything personal here. Like if I'll draw it back to business. Okay. The business that we're in. If you're in this situation and you pour everything into a rep and you're so excited and they're so excited and they look amazing and they're going to do great things and they've told you that they, want to do all these things, and then they flatline and they run away, because it'll happen. It'll happen to everybody, if it hasn't already. And that's hard. It's hard to swallow. And it's like, what did I do wrong? All things. And that's why I say so much, fall in love with the process of this business. Don't fall in love with the results. It's the process. When you really make peace with that, the results pop up. And it's because we're taking it too personally. Like, we can't take it personally whether somebody succeeds or fails in this business. What they do with their business
Right.
is completely up to them. And just like it's up to us to build enough, momentum, enough team, enough, consistent customer acquisition into our own businesses to hit our own financial goals, it can't rely on any one person. So it's the same thing when somebody succeeds. Like, I can't take credit when somebody succeeds. That's their doing. When they excel and they do something spectacular, that's their doing. That's not mine. As much as I would like to, your ego wants to attach itself to that success, it really isn't about that. It's the person made the decision to follow through with the process, and they came out on the other side with a positive result. So, it's funny, in the beginning, we read into that chapter like, oh, like all the bad stuff. But then at the top, like, when you get to the upper levels of this business, then you're like, oh shit, I can't, I can't take that personally. I can't take that, and it kind of goes in the other direction. So it's just interesting how, again, these truth principles kind of follow through through your growth. But in your situation, I think what she's trying to do is prepare you with a positive mindset to go in to protect yourself better.
Absolutely.
And in that space, utilizing the tools that are available to you always, there's got to be a human resources department if it's a business environment where you just need to speak freely to somebody.
My boss
without
emotions.
That. Okay, well, you always have we're always in charge of our actions and our attitudes. That's a Jeff Shearman quote that will never leave me. But it's true, we're in charge of our attitudes and our actions. And so we can choose how we approach the situation, and we can choose what we do with it. And there's always
I've
choices.
come a long way with it. And I have to say, I just have to put this part out there, since in this past few weeks, since I've been using the Juice Plus, I've been feeling a lot better, and I haven't been taking as much personally from her.
Great.
And
good.
And I actually found out from someone that she got mad because I was so happy.
There you go. There you go.
Then you keep being happy.
Yeah.
And
she may just quit. She just may quit because she can't stand it. I mean, unhappy people don't want to be around happy people. So that's a great buffer.
Maybe she wants to be a Juice Plus customer and be as happy as you, though. How about that?
I found out her son actually.
Would you share Juice Plus with her and see what she said?
The happy pills.
Yeah.
Be like, take this.
Maybe she's really constipated.
We definitely have something for that, right?
Don't laugh, because on Friday I said it smells like a diaper, and I actually thought maybe there was a patient somewhere, and and it turned, and then she went to the restroom, and I felt so bad after I said that.
Oh boy.
Anyway,
all right, back on track.
Yeah.
Well,
with that,
don't take anything personally.
How funny.
Are there any other shares about don't take anything or be impeccable with your words, or any thoughts at all? Because we are nearing I think it's 9:31. No, that's all. That's awesome.
Okay.
No worries.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one, and it keeps coming back around. So don't feel like, oh, I mastered the skill, I'm on to the next. Nope, it's cyclical. And every time it comes back around, you do that much better with it. And that's why this is one of those like universal tools that really I hope you guys will take seriously and revisit year after year, because it does make such a huge impact.
It does. Wait, Jennifer, you're on mute if you're trying to talk to us.
On mute? Am I on mute now?
No, you're good.
Oh. I just feel like I need to reread it, because I tell myself over and over again throughout the last couple of years, especially since I got into the mom world, and we started kindergarten. For the most part, the moms at Parsons are nice, and the families are nice and the kids are nice. But everyone knows in every school, every situation, you meet some difficult parents, you'll meet some difficult kids. And I try to tell myself and Samantha all the time not to take things personally, but sometimes it's hard to know when someone is truly toxic, when you just don't take one or two things that they say personally, when they are truly toxic. Like, do you guys know? Like, sometimes it's very clear. I've known people that are toxic, okay, separate yourself, and you just know. But when is it a situation where it's just like maybe that person's having a rough time, you want them in your life? Do you know what I'm saying?
Jen,
Why are you
hold on. We're
smiling
going to
about
pause for 1 second
Oh.
because Francesca's here, you guys, and she wants to say something. Hold on 1 second. Let me put it on. Do I have my? Can you hear us?
I see a dreidel.
Okay. All right, Francesca, you want to say Happy Hanukkah?
Happy Hanukkah.
Thank
To
you.
everybody
Thank you.
who celebrates.
Oh, thank
That's cute. That's cute.
They're saying thank you. I don't know if you can hear them very loud. 'Cause
Thank you. Thank you.
There we go. Okay, okay. Bye, Gabby. Now they're going back to their dance party. Okay. Thank you for that. Sorry, I wanted to honor them and their sweet little thinking. They're so sweet. Happy Hanukkah, everybody. Okay,
you.
so you were saying about how to judge. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. That's kind of the whole point of this is don't overthink it. Just don't take things personally, right? When something bad happens or some words, this is how and Danielle, you can share if you see it differently, but the way I interpret this is when somebody does something good or bad in my direction, I don't take it personally because that was just a reflection of their actions and their thoughts. It really has nothing to do with me. You see,
true.
like it's just whether they're a great person doing a bad thing or they're a bad person doing a really bad thing, it doesn't really matter because I'm independent of that choice. Does that make sense?
Now let's turn it just quickly. I know everyone has to get off. Let's turn it the other way around. When I was really feeling down before I met, Jen introduced me to Danielle, and I was just feeling down like every day. And thank God that's not the case anymore. But I think I was toxic to some people because I was so depressed. But at the same time, it made me angry because I was going through a hard time, and instead of walking away, it would have been nice for that particular person. There's a particular person that did that to me, for that particular person to say something to me and give me the benefit of the doubt, since we had been friends for a long time, give me the benefit of the doubt and say, listen, all the negativity coming from you is becoming toxic, something like that. Just the walking the way I felt was so insulting. I wish that she would have said something to me, because then maybe A, would have snapped me out of it. And B, if I continued, I would have continued. I would have tried a little harder to.
But do you see how much pressure and how much responsibility you're putting on her to affect your feelings?
Yeah, but was it the right thing for someone to walk? I just like if I don't know.
It was the right thing for her. Yeah, exactly.
Jen, it goes back. It goes back to the book also about what people will say to you and how you wind up perceiving yourself. So you may already have perceived yourself as being toxic. She may have seen you as being toxic, but you may not have been ready to accept it from her if she said something to you. Just like there's some section in the book, one of these 2 chapters where someone goes over to someone and says, you're fat. You may know you're fat, but you don't want to hear it from someone else to say you're fat.
Right.
And my Jen knows that I struggled with weight for a long time. And people would make comments and didn't realize I was trying my damnedest to lose weight.
Right.
No one ever listened to that. They just assumed, you really weren't trying. And the statements were toxic and they were hurtful. And that way they were hurtful. So, and I wasn't listening to them, because I knew down that I was doing what I could do. Now, there was another step that I didn't know I could take, which I eventually did take. But diet-wise, I was doing everything, and I just listened. And the more I heard, the more hurtful it became. And, I kind of like shied away from people who would say, how fat you are, or you look terrible today, or whatever, no matter what I did. And my wardrobe was impeccable, and the way I carried myself was impeccable, but they saw the fat woman in the room.
But again, putting that into a place, where, we're all in our own journey, we're all in our own space. So creating that to understand that their comments are reflection of their thinking. That's what this is all about. It's about really differentiating those two things, because people can say, you know, words can be extremely hurtful, but with this knowledge, with this, I feel like it's an awareness more than anything. Like, it's a universal truth. Like, you can then go into a situation and be able to take those words, and instead of letting them come in through to your heart center and hurt you, you can kind of catch them and say, oh, I identified what those are. I'm going to catch those. We're just going to put that over on this table over here of Sarah having a bad day, right? That's on her. That's not on me. And I'm not going to let that through. I'm not going to let that come through. Whether it's true or not is not the issue. It's more about, you know, the words coming at you being a reflection of their thinking, not a reflection of you.
Right.
And, you know, and you really being aware enough with your own system and your own self, right? And Maxine, in that example, you were saying, I was doing everything I can. I'm aware of my reality, and I'm still taking those steps. So being okay with that, right? Because that's your authentic truth. Like, that's your being impeccable with your own word, but being also, in addition, that combination of the two things, knowing where you're at, and then being able to take those unkind words and put them to the side and say, I see that you see that, you know, and we're just going to leave that over here, and I'm going to keep on moving in my direction, because I know I'm doing all the right things for myself, despite of your thoughts, right?
You know, for me, the interesting part was when I started to become happier, this person approached me and wanted to be friends with me again.
And I understand that, Jennifer. I want to explain just from my perspective. I am sensitive to energy too. And I tend to, it's not that I abandon my friends in bad situations, but if I'm in a fragile state, I have a hard time being around other people that are in a frenetic state or an angry state or a, you know, stressed out, mad, angry, that kind of like energy becomes very intrusive to my being. And so, especially given what I've gone through, like she may just be going through stuff on her own and needed to buffer from that. So, you know, again, not taking it personally, just recognizing that that's a reflection of where she's at in her world, in her thinking, right, in her circumstance. And
that's why I gotta read it again, because it was hard for me to wrap my head around that, because I can't seem to I can't let myself reconnect with her, because I feel like if I have
maybe it's not time. Maybe you need to go through this a little bit.
One negative
you know?
thing, she can't handle it. That's not a true friendship. Yes, it's good to be positive. It's good to be positive, but you don't want to feel. I understand. Believe me, I've had people that I've had to walk away from too, but I just handle it a little differently. Unless it's like a situation like Jen Bernstein was talking about, where it's just like a new group, it truly was toxic, you just kind of like casually walk away. But if it's like a really like one-on-one close friend that just walks away without any explanation, that I find not okay. At least one explanation. And I even tried to approach her. One explanation of, I just am going through too much stuff right now, and I'm sorry. And that's it. And and I would have totally understood that and respected, but she didn't. And then she tried to come back, and I just said, unfortunately, I'm not in a place to accept that. So I don't think I'm doing the second agreement very well.
First of all, I think that nobody wants a fair weather friend. And I don't care what the book says and energy or not, but you always want a friend that's going to be with you no matter what, good or bad, whether your energy shifts or not. I totally disagree with that. That's what friends are. So I also think that maybe I'm the only one that found the book a little superficial, in the sense that it just tried to pigeonhole every situation, and that's not possible. Like
that's why I struggled. That's why I struggled a little bit with it too. Maybe just reading it again one or two more times will help me get, understand it better. But what you're saying, Jen, is
it glossed over a lot of topics, and yet other areas it talked too much, and it got into detail on things that I felt didn't need detail. It was very verbose when it wasn't necessary, and then in other areas it just glossed over things. And I think in a situation like this, it's there's no general answer. There really isn't. And it's not like you can say whatever, that it's on you and that it's the way you take things, and you can't take things personally, because that's not always the answer. because if somebody is your friend, they're your friend, and they don't come and go into your life based on their needs. They need to be there for all of your needs. And that has nothing to do with Jen. That has to do with it's I don't know. I'm sorry.
I think we're getting off it a little bit. I think it's maybe what would be helpful, I think, is to read it a couple more times.
Okay.
And then to come back again and try to like air it out a little bit without that situation in mind. Read through it for both of you, you know, and read through it again a couple times. And again, this is meaty stuff, you know, it's not the first pass. I mean, I read a bunch of it the first, I went through the impeccable thing. I was like, I am impeccable with my word. I totally am impeccable with my word. It wasn't until the third time I read it that I caught things in my behavior, in my thought process. And this is over 3 years, you know? So I was like, oh, wow, wait a minute. Hold on a second. I thought I was being entirely impeccable, but I wasn't in certain situations. And so it really helped me, again, awareness, you know, and I'm grateful, Jen, for you sharing your opinion, because it's important to have opinions, you know, but just be open. Like I said, you know, create that space, that seed, you know, for the positive seeds to fall. I just encourage you to be open to maybe rereading it at some point with a different interpretation is all.
Yeah. And I read it very quickly, so I need to sit down and really read it and understand it a little bit better. I think it will help me with my interactions in the future.
I have to say, I actually agree with Jen, my Jen, as opposed to Jen Bernstein. Sorry, ladies. I had a lot of trouble, and I was talking to Jen about it, especially on the impeccable words. At first, I felt it was like hell and fire and brimstone, because it was very wordy. It was very negative. And I'm not always impeccable with my words. I think I am, and then I'm told I'm not. So I'm very honest with that, and I'm front. But I look at how this was written, and I'd say it's all negative. The whole front end of that chapter is all the negative, about the negative, and like all the wrong things. You know, say this, don't say that. You're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. And not like, rather than having said that, you should have said that, and that would have been an impeccable use of words. And that would have made it a more positive chapter, a more useful chapter. I found that I almost stopped reading the book at the first half of the first chapter because of that. Like, it took me till this morning to pick it up again. That's how mad I was.
And it is longer. It's a much longer chapter than the second chapter.
Not the length, it was the content.
Well, and then there's stories shared in there. There's the example he gives of the daughter singing, and the mother comes home with a headache.
You have a horrible voice.
Right. You have a horrible voice because she's in a bad mood. I mean, but I think it's easy to come up with a lot of negative examples. I think it's very common for many people in their language, in their everyday. I mean, think about even for, you know, those of us that might be married or be with a partner, and what you quickly say to your partner in, you know, are you wearing that? Like, you know, just a little, but that can be taken like, what's wrong with that? Like, you know, just speak a little kinder. Maybe they totally like what they're wearing. They think they look really good. Don't comment on what they're wearing. You know, or are you really going to eat that? Or, you know, I don't know. Those are just some quick examples. But I think it's easy to give those negative examples. And I think giving all the negative examples, in my opinion, leaves room for you to realize, I think, how to catch yourself if you might be in those situations, whether it's you being the one verbally speaking or being on the receiving end, you know, being able to recognize those situations. Again, awareness, they talk about awareness, just being aware of those situations, being aware of those words coming out of your mouth or hearing them being spoken to you, you know, so giving a lot of examples so that you can sort of pick up on it maybe, and trying to make a change. And I think awareness is the first, like, so being aware of the situation, this goes for anything. This goes for you're trying to watch what you're eating. You become more aware of what you're eating, right? Just having an awareness of whatever it is that you're looking to improve upon is the first step, and an amazing, great step. If you're not aware, then good luck, right? But just being aware is the first step. So having that awareness of the words we're speaking, being more mindful of it, the language that we're using, whether it's to ourselves, in our thoughts, even if it's just in our head, the words are just floating around our head, or to others, right? I think that's, in my opinion, I think it's important.
I agree.
Right?
All right. Well, thank you guys for continuing on this road with us. Thank you for taking the steps. And Maxine, thank you for not throwing the book away, but really, you know, keep on
I'll
going.
let you know next week when I read the next chapter.
Hey, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, you know, when I was first starting this, it's funny that you said it, because it brought up a really old story. I'm very vulnerable right now. When I first started this business, I can't remember the words that she used. Something to the effect, I got some coaching, and somebody said something to the effect of, I was, you know, you got to understand, I left my job. I was doing this, you know, I just jumped in with 2 feet, right? So I had no other income. And so I needed to make this work quickly. And if it was going to work at all, it was going to work quickly. And I remember something to the effect of, there's no dignity in having no money, or something like that. And it just struck such a chord with me. And I couldn't, and, you know, don't quote me on it because I forget, it's so long ago now. I was so impacted that I wrote this woman a letter who's like a gazillion club. And I was mad, and I was angry, and I was sad, and I mean, all of it, right, out on this paper. I was so defensive and pissed, you know. And I remember going back now I'm here in this 2 years later, I went back to her and I apologized. And I said, I'm so sorry, because you were honest with me. In her speech, she was being honest with what she said to me in the moment where I needed to hear it, and I was not ready. And sometimes words touch us that way. So when we're reading things like this, sometimes it's easy to get to our guard up quickly about stuff. So if there's a space in a book or in a, you know, coaching interaction or something like that where you feel that happen, pay attention to that, because there very well might just be something there for you to dig in deeper about. And for me, there was, you know. And so I just want to leave you with that this is all meant to be dealt with love, you know, and personal journeys. You know, personal growth is the name of this business. I mean, the more we get better at this, the more open we are to it, the further along we go, as uncomfortable as spaces may be in our own personal journey. You know, that's where the growth happens. And when you grow, your business grows. And that's really why we're doing it. So thank you all for participating. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being open. It means so much to us, you know, that we got to do this together. Yeah. And let's finish up for next week so we can tie it up in a bow and move forward.
Yeah.
Do you think it's important to reread the first 2 chapters before moving on to the 3rd and 4th?
It sounds like it might be.
That's a yes.
Does that mean you don't think I got it?
But you know what, Jennifer, I will do it with you, because again, you can't do it enough. You really can't do it enough. It's, you know, yeah.
You know, it's just like a movie. You pick up something new each time.
Every time, Greta. That's exactly true. Yeah, every time. Yeah.
Well, my daughter watched The Croods about 20, 30 times. I don't know if you've ever seen that cartoon.
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious. But every time I enjoy it, every time I watch it, I was like, oh, I didn't notice that. Maybe it'll be the same thing with the book.
Good. Yeah. Good. Put on some good happy music before you dive into it, and have a cup of tea, and then.
No, for the most part, just my last words, for the most part, I liked it, and it was food for thought. Mm-hmm. It just happened to bring up 1 or 2 situations where I wasn't sure how I should have handled that differently based on what the book was saying. It wasn't like the whole time I was thinking all these negative things. I mean, I liked it. I think it was informative, and I have a lot of negative self-talk, and I've been working on it a lot since May. And you've
Good.
helped me, all of you have helped me a lot with that, but it's a challenge when you've been doing that to yourself for 43 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what's so funny is, as you start to change a lot of that stuff, I mean, I keep waiting for the day, Jennifer, when I come onto this call and you're just smiling. Because you have the most beautiful smile and your energy, and I'm being so serious. When you smile, your whole everything changes. And and it goes into show like these are the kinds of things that we're not necessarily aware of, in ourselves. Like I do it all the time. Sometimes I make these and people go, "What's she's so serious?" Like, I'm not. But I was just thinking, like Francesca said to me the other day, we decorated the Christmas tree, and gosh, what did she say? She goes, "Oh, it's supposed to be fun, Mom." Oh, I'm like, like, you're not having fun. I'm having fun. She's like, you're not smiling. I was like, oh, sorry. I'm like, I was just mentally arranging all of the things. Do you know what I'm saying? But our perception, right? How people see us, how we're all that stuff. It's all part of it. So I just applaud you all for doing it, for taking the steps, and thank you for getting on the call and going down the path with us. It's pretty fun. So let's finish it out, and we'll get on to next week, and we'll see you all then. Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.